What's up, everyone? It's Spencer here from Scoped Exposure.
And Jessa from Damage Control, and together we make the host of Through Our Lens podcast.
And we are putting together the Scoped 5-year fest that's happening here in Calgary.
This fest is happening August 26th and 27th in the city of Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
We got a ton of great bands who are playing. We got a bit of a California takeover with Strife, Tsunami, and Scowl.
We've also got IM joining us from Texas, along with Ballista. We've got Karma from Chicago, Change from the Northwest, and a ton of other great supporting acts. Tickets can be bought at www.damagecontrol.store. We've got weekend passes as well as single-day offerings up there now.
You can also find the ticket link in the description of this podcast as well as either of our socials. This is something we've worked on for a long, long time. Get your tickets now, and we'll see you there.
We rented a cheap car that was like unlimited kilometers.
Oh,
so we could go we could literally put like 4,000 kilometers on it, and it didn't cost a lot of money.
Poutine, Poutine.
thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. This episode for me means a lot, and it's something that I've been looking forward to ever since it was even in the discussions. It was not on the radar as far as being able to talk with and promote one of, in my opinion, one of Canada's greatest hardcore bands of all time. It is an absolute pleasure and honor of mine to be welcoming Max of PROWL to the show. Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. If it wasn't clear by that elaborate intro, I am a big fan, a borderline simp for all things PROWL. And, if anyone that this is your first time hearing about the band name, pause this podcast, go listen to the Forgotten Realms. PROWL has a band that is very early in the Scoped existence and one of the very first bands outside of just Western Canada that I was able to catch a set of, and I think there's just been a lot of good connections between not only Max but the entire PROWL camp. So I'm really excited to be chatting with you today, bro.
Yes, I'm excited as well.
Yeah. So before we get into the music chats, we have to check some bevs here on the show. So Max, how about you go first as far as what you got beverage wise?
I brought Orangina. It's a drink that is very popular here because I'm in France right now. And everyone drinks this. It's like a mix of Perrier and like orange juice. Okay. I feel like it's a good mix of two drinks I like. So that's what I brought on the show.
I've definitely
today.
seen that in Canada, but it seems like that's more of a go-to out where you're at.
Yes, honestly, I've seen it like in Montreal and everything, and I drank it before, but like here, it's like a lot of people have it in their hands.
Right. Yeah. It's the whole thing, There was one person that recently commented on a podcast that I did. It was like, I love this podcast, but I can't get behind this whole beverage section. And I had to okay, don't retaliate, don't do something, because it's like a huge icebreaker of the show to be able to talk about like these different things that aren't even connected to music in general. But I think just beverage culture in general, you're able to, having something in your hand when you're at a show, alcoholic or not, is like, it's a conversation starter. Like, oh, what is that thing? And that's anything from a Red Bull to an Orangina. So good pick.
Yes, thanks. What's yours?
So I made some iced coffee this morning. So this is the leftovers that I've actually kind of combined it. I'm normally like, I just drink my coffee black outside of maybe doing like a dirty chai, but we had my wife got dark chocolate almond milk, and she was trying to experiment because she's a mocha girl, and I was like, okay, I need to use up some of this because otherwise it's just gonna go bad, because it's just like little by little. So it's got some dark chocolate almond milk and then regular almond milk as well. So It's a little bit of a bougie drink as
Fancy.
far as coffee
Yes.
goes.
I like that.
Yeah. What's your normal? Well, first off, let me cheers you. Very excited to do this
Yes,
podcast
yes.
with you,
Cheers.
my friend. Also, we got the metal straw, so we're very conscious of everything. But I was gonna ask you,
like
like,
that.
what's your go-to as far as coffee go, or are you a coffee person even?
Yes, I mean, I normally drink coffee in the morning. I normally here I've been drinking just like espresso shot with one sugar.
Mhm.
That has been my go-to since like I left Canada for vacation. Yeah, and that's normally what I drink in Montreal as well. So
Yeah, I always feel like I've only had like just straight up espresso once, and I'm like, I need to like build this up a little bit, but I just don't know if it's like, to me, drinking a full cup of coffee is like, there's such like a process to like starting my day and like forming my mind, but it feels like anyone that's like just, to me, just drinking straight up espresso is just like, I don't have time for that, and I just need the caffeine shot immediately. So I don't know if
Yes.
that's true or not, but yeah, it's a vibe. I definitely want to experience that. Depending when it comes for
Yeah,
me.
France is the place, man, that experimented.
Yeah. Well, again, Max, I'm super excited. There's a ton today that I want to talk to you about PROWL wise, but I always get any new guest who comes on the show here, the opportunity to give a bit of context about like how they even got into like hardcore punk, however you want to
Yes.
spin it. So take me back way back in time when little Maxie was yay high, and tell me some of the formative times for you getting into this style of music.
I mean, when I was very young, like I got into like punk and metal like very young, and then like like it definitely transitioned to hardcore. I'd say when I was like 14 or 15. Like just a bunch of my friends were like showing me these new bands, and like I remember seeing like my first hardcore show, and I was like that's dangerous, but like I really liked it, and I don't know. Since then, like I've just shows are like a big part of like my routine. I'd say like I'm always going to show, and like I'm always stoked to discover new bands, and like I just like to be a part of what's happening in like my city, let's say, and like just always trying to support like everyone who's doing like hard work, and like I said, like I don't know, when I was young I just got into it, and since then like I've never stopped going to shows and like going to fest and stuff like that. And then at some point I wanted to like start my own thing and like having a band, and so I guess that's a kind of large introduction, but like that's pretty much how I got into it.
And before we even get into like starting your own bands, like I want to break down every detail. So like when you said the first show that you're going to and it was like ultra violent, was it like looking back at the time you're like, yeah, that was just a normal hardcore show, but like to the unexposed eye you were like, oh, this is like the craziest thing? Or was it like, oh, actually like it was super violent and people were like throwing shit? Like I just want to know, like,
for me,
yeah,
it was more like entering in like this new scene or world like in my city that I didn't knew was a thing, like that I didn't knew like hardcore was what it was. So like the first hardcore show I saw, I was like, okay, like this kind of music is absolutely insane, the energy they get from the crowd, and like I think I was just mind blown, like, and then I just started like digging into it, and like you know how it is, like just a bunch of friends like digging into new bands and like sharing it with each other, and like also like we became like part of this scene at some point too. Like we just started to talk with older people that were like, hey, like do you know about all these like bands from Montreal that like started, like that were like the pioneer of like the Montreal hardcore, and like so like this show was violent, but it's not really what stick to my mind. It's more like how mind blown I was of like, okay, so like hardcore music is a thing, and like I just got very curious about it. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the interaction between the band and the crowd is like, like you can go to any rock show or whatever and it's like, yeah, like people can clap and there's like that kind of participation. But when there's a constant flow between energy between how a band is performing and then how like people are reacting to that, and like ultimately like some shows are so chaotic and they're so close quarters that like sometimes people are like knocking over mic stands, and that like in any other subgenre you'd be like, oh, like how dare those people, but like most people in hardcore are like, well, that's just the name of the game and like fuck it, and we'll just keep rolling with it as we can.
Exactly. And I felt that this was very, I don't know, nice, beautiful to see, like I was like, that's some kind of energy that it's hard to find in other style and music genre.
So you were mentioning when you started to like you said, like become a part of the Montreal scene, and other, people were like, oh, like, do you know about these other bands that like, in your words, like pioneered the scene or things like that?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything just as far as like that you want to educate people on? Because, it's always a funny thing doing scoped exposure where it's like, there are maybe a couple people listening that only know of a few Canadian bands, but like I love being able to, I'm remembering when I had Sienna of Gasm on the show, and they were just talking about like all this history, and for me, it's like I see a band like Gasm or a band like you guys, and that's the only band that I know, and then it kind of takes those bands to dig a little deeper. So it's kind of the same with Vancouver or Winnipeg or Alberta. Like there's like one initial band that maybe puts the rest of the scene on the map. So I don't know if there's any history or cool things that you can share just about Montreal.
Yes, I mean, there's definitely like older hardcore bands that like people need to check out, and I'm sure like people have heard of them before, but like there's Plus Minus that like is a great Montreal hardcore band. There's like Final Word, there's Enforcers as well. Yeah, I suggest everyone to go check these bands because they've taught us a lot.
Right. So, so you're getting into this whole space in Montreal, and you're discovering like all like, oh, like the local scene. Was like, did you grow up playing an instrument, or did you like, where did you find your spot in, like, we're gonna get to Prowl eventually, but where did you find your spot in just like actually like, oh, I can do this for myself now, versus I'm just going to these shows and watching other people do it?
I always played guitar like when I was young. So yeah, at some point, like me and a couple friends were like, that had other band as well. We were like, let's start a project. Like I was gonna play guitar, and like we did like 1 or 2 shows. Like it was very cool, and like we had fun. But it ended up like falling apart because like like I said, some of the members had like bigger bands and stuff like that. So like they were more busy with that, and like that's perfect. Like at the end of the day, I played guitar in that band, and I realized like I wanted to try the vocals, and like I had a metal band like when I was a teenager that I was doing vocals on,
Right.
But then that's how like pretty much how PROWL started. I was just like, I wanna go back on vocal and like try this out, and yeah. So, but I was happy that like I had this other band, and we played a couple shows, and it just like it still showed me like, oh, being on a stage, like playing with a bunch of friends, like it's the best thing, So like I was like, this project is over, but like it just taught me that like I want to do this again. So that's where like PROWL came.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people can attest that it wasn't, if it wasn't for their shitty like first 2 or 3 bands, like just getting into like the current projects or the projects that that people would actually talk about, like if it wasn't for those early instances, then like you might have not even like, we would not be sitting here today. So I think that's like such a testament to like anyone that maybe hasn't played in a band yet, and they're like, well, how do I even get to that point? It's like all like, as soon as you jump into one, then it's just like grabbing whatever vine is closest to you and just like going with that naturally. Because I don't think it's like, I don't know if people nowadays have this expectation of like zero to hero, like they're gonna put this band together and put out a demo and blow up. But like, I think a lot of people like there's something to be said about all the people that are in the super awesome bands that they are in now because of like the really just in the process of like playing shows to like 10 people, 15 people, 30 people, and like playing really bad music. Like, but
Yes.
it takes that to like
it's
actually,
a part of it.
It's totally a part of it. Yeah, yeah.
No, I fully agree. And like, that's why, like, just like like you said, like these people that just discovered like the hardcore music genre, like it's just start a band, you know, like you got to start somewhere. And like you said, you won't put out a demo and like, I mean, maybe, but like you got to work on your stuff. And like, that's how like starting somewhere, like with your first band and then your second one and your third one, like you just know how it works better and like how to do things. Like, yeah. So, yeah.
So, like you said, you were starting to play guitar, but like, what was the idea of like rocking the mic? Like, what most intrigued you about that? Was it like seeing other really cool vocalists and you're like, oh, I want to be able to like stick the mic in people's faces, or I wanted to like scream where you are doing backup vocals? I kind of want to know some of those things.
Yeah, I think the fact that I had done it before, like I think like I was still missing that feeling of like singing in front of people and just like, yeah, being able to rock on stage with my friends, you know? And yeah, I don't know, like I feel like the fact that I played guitar and I was like, that's cool, but like I want to try again on the vocal because I feel like that's my place. I mean, I want to play drum too, and like I know it's gonna happen one day, but like I used to play, but yeah. So I just jumped on the vocal for PROWL, and like also I feel like we had all the members that were playing like their instrument, and we like even if it like the band was kind of my idea at first, like it was just working like a perfect puzzle because like we had a bass player, guitar player, drum, and I was like, I want to do vocals, so like let's just try it and like we'll see what happens with it. So you know,
yeah,
started writing and playing a couple shows and
yeah. So I guess like whenever I think of PROWL and you know when people are like, you know, because obviously like I'm a big riff head as far as anyone who knows me, and like the minute I saw you guys the first time play Calgary, I was like, okay, this band, like I can get behind it. Was the idea like was the early inspiration to be that like thrashy and that riff driven like right since day one, or did you guys like kind of evolve into that? Because I remember like the original demo definitely has moments of that, but it's definitely to me it feels more hardcore leaning, and then I feel like everything after is just riffs. So I don't know if you have anything you want to correct the record or share your thoughts on that when it comes to the genre you guys were trying to play.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think also the fact that it's our first demo, we definitely like, that was our direct line. We wanted this sound like kind of, like we wanted this sound trash metal, but also have that like hardcore very present. So I think the first demo is definitely, and I agree with you, like has more hardcore parts and stuff like that. However, like I said, we were still like new to write like music together. So like it took like some time to find like our actual sound, I'd say. And that's why like we released like the Waging War promo like less than a year after the demo, because we were like, okay, we already like we played a lot of shows and stuff in like a short period, and I feel like that just helped us to find like how we really wanted to sound. So yeah, we released these two songs, and then we were like, okay, like now we have something that we're like, okay, that's how we wanted to sound,
right?
And then, you know, we always like to work on our stuff and like always work on our tones and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like with the promo we really found like where we wanted to go, and I feel like with the album that we just released, like we just pushed it, and we got a lot of feedback that people were like, like you guys sound like this live, and I was like, that's what I want to hear, you know. I want people to listen to the LP and be like, that's how they sound live. So hopefully that reflect on our live performance.
Yeah, totally. I remember there's very few. There was one moment where I saw Balance and Composure live, and I remember I was like standing in the room and I closed my eyes, and I was like, this is exactly how this band sounds recorded. And it was almost like this very like, not like spiritual, but it just was this weird connection where it's like, you know, when you see any other band of any genre and there is that just like extra live component, it's not like it's jarring, but it's just like this what it is. But if it feels, I feel like it's almost like a super high compliment to be able to like, you guys sound live exactly how it is recorded, because then you know there's like nothing to hide on that front.
Exactly. And yeah, so I'm very happy to hear all these feedbacks, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, and I totally agree. Like the 2-song promos, like I think the first song that I heard from Prowl was Memento of Death, like the first track of that with the music video. And I was just like, you know, it's kind of this song that's long, but like it's one of those songs that it's like the first part is almost like an intro. It could be its own intro before the actual song kicks in. And and yeah, so I was really hyped on that. So let's fast forward a little bit. You know, you guys put that out. And like I said, like PROWL's a band that like came through Calgary not once but twice. And I feel like there are certain bands within the lore of just like the scene here where when they're making that far of a jaunt, you know, you guys are coming all the way from Montreal all the way over to Alberta, like we really welcome and like try to make those bands feel at home. So I don't know if there's any stories or funny things that you can share as far as like, well, even just the why of like being able to go out that far of a way just to play, you know, some a couple shows. I know there's been some tours in the mix, but yeah, why was coming out this way like so intriguing to you guys at the time?
Honestly, I feel like Prowl, like we've always, like when we had like crazy offers or stuff like that, we were always like, okay, how can we make this work? You know, we always wanted to like, I don't know, when people were like, oh, you want to come play like this fest at the other side of the country? We're like, okay, that's kind of far, but like, let's see what we can do. And like, we were always like being like, okay, so like, we should go because of this and we shouldn't because of that. But like at the end of the day, we just really wanted to push the band and like we wanted to take as much opportunity as we could. And like, I don't know, we just made great friends through the way, you know, like coming to Calgary, like the first time was like you said, we really felt like home. Like I remember we played and like, we were all like, I don't know, it just felt very good to see everyone like having a lot of fun. And it was like our first time there, you know. So and when we came back, like it was just so nice to see like all the familiar faces and like being able to play twice, like in Calgary, like we just felt really grateful. And like I said, when we got invited to the first to our first show over there, we just flew and we were like, we got to do this, you know, like we're going to meet a bunch of people. And like, that's how, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, that's pretty much, we just like all agree that it was a good idea and that it would be good for the band too. So we were like, let's rock and let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. Cause I think like even in, I was just listening to the latest Axe to Grind episode where they were like recapping a lot of things from Sound and Fury Fest that just happened a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And they were talking about the Speed set and like, you know, Speed, good friends of the show. I love all those dudes. Like just the whole aspect of like a band traveling from like the other side of the world. And, you know, it's playing a big festival, but there's like other shows that they were playing. There is like an element of risk. Like you're playing in an entirely new like territory, like people might not show up. So it's like kind of the same thing with you guys coming over here. I know Endgame like went out to Toronto for our first time in December, and we kind of realized coming back of like, man, like I think we got like really you know, we did what we could do, but there's still an element of luck in being able to just like enter a scene at the right time. And yeah, there's always a risk where, you know, maybe people are not going to come through, maybe people don't buy merch in that city. But it seemed like you guys had a really good experience here, and then it was like a no-brainer when 2018 like rolled around. And I could definitely see all the fans that, you know, maybe went to go check you guys out at the 2017 fest to the 2018 were like, we're here for PROWL, you know, like there's a difference of
Yes.
like, I'm gonna go check out this band versus like, I'm here for this band.
Yeah, like I don't know, Calgary has always been very good to us, like crowd wise too. Like there's always a bunch of people who show up, and like I'm so happy that like we connected with like west of Canada, and like it's also so fun to see familiar faces in the crowd, and like talking to people online and being like, yeah, we'll see each other at this fest like in a couple months. And yeah, like being able to actually share our music with like the people over there was like, yeah, kind of a dream come true. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, just good times and like good vibes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely miss Calgary.
Yeah, I hope that you guys can make it out here in the next, you know, year or so. And I feel like this is almost like not a selfish thing, but I have to give you maybe some roses because I think like you know, I was playing in some thrash bands before I moved to Calgary, and you know, that genre of music has always been like, you know, at the back of my mind and like something that I naturally write as my own musician. But I think seeing how PROWL's type of music like just did out here, and then, you know, not seeing you guys here for so long, and then you had pandemic time, it was, I feel like almost some of that was maybe a subtle influence into like me starting Endgame, because I was like, well, if PROWL's not going to be a band anymore, I want to write or try to write something that's like even like remotely close to that. And I feel like our own stylistic choices have evolved, so it's like, you know, I feel as though as much thrash stuff as I push, there's still naturally things that come out a little bit more like traditional hardcore, like, you know, people have compared us to Trapped Under Ice or Incendiary or bands like that. But they can't deny that there's like a subtle undertone of like that I just want to be a thrash band at all times. But yeah,
I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, no, it's wild. And yeah, I definitely remember, you know, when the 2-song promo came out, it was just on like constant repeat. And yeah, it was so cool. I remember vividly like editing the 2018 Prowl Wadra set, and just like that moment when that circle pit opened up, like just the energy of the room was just so infectious.
Yes.
So you know, before we get into maybe the PROWL break, and then getting into the new album, you know, and this is off of the notion of like just getting a cool opportunity, and as much of it doesn't make logistical sense as far as like being so far away from where you guys are at. You're so gung-ho of like, let's figure this out. Like it seems like
Yes,
LDB
yes.
2019 was like a similar thing of that, where like you guys didn't like plan a tour. You're just like, we're just going for this show. And was that just off of a similar mindset?
Yes, I'd say like some friends of ours like reached out to us and were like, "Hey, would probably be interested in like coming to play LDB in Louisville," and like we like it's pretty much the same thing, you know. Like we had toured the States like a couple months before that for like a week, and it was kind of hard for us to be like, okay, let's take like a 2 weeks off and go there. So we were just like, okay, like let's plan this and let's just drive to the fest. And because like we were like, this is gonna be amazing, this is gonna be a great weekend, like we have the opportunity to go play in Louisville, and like we had our visas at the time too, so it was not like that big of a deal to cross the borders, let's say.
Sure. Yeah.
But like what we pretty much did was just we rented a cheap car that was like unlimited kilometers.
Oh.
So we could go like we could literally put like 4,000 kilometers on it, and it didn't cost a lot of money. So we just had to drive, but like honestly, it was so worth it to see everyone. And like I said, we always consider every opportunity and like try to do as much as we can. So
yeah, like that's something that I feel like my current bands are currently in the mix of, where it's like, yeah, we're very fortunate to get any opportunity, but like I really believe in the like just making it work, because in 5 years time you're going to be looking back on that like, man, I'm so happy that we did that. I'm so happy that we like did that thing, whether the show was, you know, hype or not. It's like such a cool thing to like plan those opportunities when they come their way, because you know it doesn't need to it doesn't need to make sense, because at the end of the day, hardcore as a whole almost doesn't make sense. It's like this very weird type of music that all these people are coming from all over the world to go and see. So like, you know, if you're in a, if anyone listening who's like in a band and like gets an opportunity, but it's like on the other side of the world, like sometimes you do need to pick your battles of like, you know, this is a week away and we don't have visas, and like, is this actually worth it? But like when things do land on your radar and that you can actually make it work, like you got like, it's worth to fight to make it work.
Yeah, like you got to take some risk. Like obviously sometimes you're going to hit walls, but like at the end of the day, like this still makes good memories. So like
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, great memories and great friendships that like, you know, last a lifetime.
Exactly.
So you guys do LDB. It's like early 2019. And then like not a lot happens the rest of that year. And then, you know, pandemic hits, and like I think the pandemic to me has shown it's not been like a hardcore reset, but it's been really interesting to watch different people who are either playing in so and so band and then they start a side project band, and then that side project band gets bigger than the other band, and then that band's like just taking over the world. And then some bands just naturally like fizzle out, just due to, you know, the current state of whatever, but like other people are doing other projects. So I think with seeing some of those shifts and not seeing anything really happen on the Prowl side, I was like nervous a little bit. I'm like, no, Prowl can't be one of the bands that suffers because of the pandemic. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you have talked about this endlessly as far as like what you guys were up to over those 3 years. But like what was the approach for you guys of like, okay, well, this is the time that we do have new music, like let's not rush anything. Like talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think because like after LDB, like we played a couple shows and then we had like a little tour plan, and then COVID hits.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, like I'd say like the LP was pretty much all recorded when not recorded, was all written when COVID hits. We had like the 8 tracks pretty much set up, and like everything was like pretty much ready to go in the studio, you know. So then COVID hits, and like there's in PROWL, like there's 2 people that lives in Rimouski and 2 people that lives in Montreal. So like that's still 5 hours away. So like when like it was very bad, like we couldn't really see each other the first couple months and stuff, and we were like, we'll just see how things go. And then we were like, okay, like we have these songs that are ready. We should just go in studio, record them, and like we have time on our hands to work on it. You know, like we're not rushed. So that's pretty much what we did. We recorded everything in Rimouski, and so like I went there a couple times, like to do my vocals and stuff, and like I was just going there like to spend like a week with Mark and Bea, and then we would like record the whole thing. And it's cool because like that also gave us time to like mix the whole thing over there and like master and stuff. So yeah, like we just took this period of time that like we didn't really knew what would happen to make sure we would like when everything would be like pretty much, you know, I mean, it's like chill now, that we would have something ready to go, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so we were just like, there's no way, we didn't want to release the album without being able to play shows. So that's why we really waited to make sure that like, okay, it's fine, like we can book shows and like they won't get canceled in 2 weeks, you know. So
Right.
like,
Right.
but I also feel like for our scene in Montreal, like the pandemic was like, I feel like now there's so many people in like local shows, which is amazing to see. So I feel like if there's one good thing that like COVID brought like to Montreal, I'd say that like this local scene right now is very, very strong. So like new bands and like new people and like, yeah, so it's amazing to see, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like that whole idea, you know, some bands were dealt the hand that they had a record and they were like they were obligated to put it out, you know, peak 2020 or whatever it was. And I definitely think that like once shows returned and I was seeing those bands, you know, do their, you know, record release shows that were like almost a year after, like people were still showing up, people were still going off for those songs. They didn't feel like old material. But yeah, like it was naturally like a lot of bands were like, we don't, and especially in Canada, because our like, you know, lockdown time was just extended so far. And, you know, it was like a lot more conservative as far as like, okay, now we can go and do these things without, like you said, like 2 weeks later, the show is shut down or the day of or whatever. So
Exactly.
yeah, like I definitely understand that, especially when you're putting that much work into, you know, your next release or a big body of work like that. So yeah, it was, I think that notion that you mentioned as far as like, you know, if there's anything good that things have come out of this whole thing is that like there's tons of new kids at shows that like we're just finding out about hardcore through watching videos at home. There's tons of new bands. It like again, it's not like hardcore has been reset, but I feel like there was just a lot of things that people were put on pause for good reason and maybe actually just like looked in the mirror a little bit more of like, what do I actually want to do musically? And, you know, some people started side project bands and then like I said, those have just become bigger and they've quit their old bands and some record labels have popped up, some have gone away. So yeah, it's just been really interesting to see all those things. So going back to Prowl, so it's coming up that it's like, okay, like we have this record, it's done, and you know, you're starting to plan these things. Was there ever a point where you were like, because I'm sure you've had myself and a lot of other people being like, when is the new music coming? But then like, was there a point where you're like, oh, like, are people gonna care? Like, are we gonna have the same level of people listening to this as, you know, the first promo? Like, was there a little bit of nervousness around that for you?
Yes, definitely, because like we haven't been active for 2 years, and like, but it's funny because for us, like we were really working in the back, you know, like working on the album and everything. So I feel like for us, we like obviously like when we were about to release the album, we were like, we're doing it because like, you know, we really want to put it out and like we're proud of like what we recorded and everything, what we wrote. But yes, definitely we're like, are people gonna still care about Prowl? Like we'll see. At the end of the day, like we're doing it because we like to play music together and write music and, you know, just put stuff out. So we were like, we'll see how people react to it and like, yeah, because I remember like saying on Twitter, like in 2020, like, yeah, new music is coming out this year, just before COVID hits. And that was kind of a lie. But, yeah. Like I was seeing it and I was like, damn, it's like literally 2 years later. Like, yeah, whatever. So yeah, we were definitely like, we haven't done anything for 2 years, but we'll put it out and like, we'll see what's up. And yeah.
Yeah, it was funny when I was prepping for this this podcast. It was like the posts before, hey, new LP out, you know, July, like this date was in 2020 when you're like, hey, we're doing these shows with Purgatory and Cold Shoulder, and then it was like 2020 and it was like nothing. But yeah, it was but I think all of those things considered, two things to me come to mind. The first is like bands of any kind need to understand that like if they're not doing stuff, like it shouldn't be about like shitting on people that are like popping underneath you or things like that. Like hardcore is almost like just ebbs and flows so much that you kind of need to like get out of the way at times to let the other bands or the other booking people
Yes.
or whatever to like go. And that doesn't mean that you take a step down. It's just like you're just allowing that band to like have the natural trajectory. At the same time, I think that there's a lot of bands that just like they're kind of like like a sleeping dragon where they just like you don't really hear from them for a little bit. Like I think Candy is like a great example of that where like they like arguably weren't really up to a whole lot in the last year or so, and then they just came back with this like killer record and headlining shit, and people are just so hyped on them. So I think that there's something to be said about bands that can just be like, we're respectfully just like staying silent and working in the background, like you said, but we're also not like, just trying to be shitty to like the bands that are just currently doing shit when we're not doing shit, if that makes sense.
Yes, that totally makes sense. And I've always had that vision too. It's like, you gotta come with new stuff and go and come and like, oh, here's a new tour and like be silent for a month or two and like here's whatever, and always like keep. I mean, I was about to say always keep giving some stuff to people, but we haven't been given anything for the last 2 years, so I won't say that. But yeah, I feel like you're totally right with like kind of being very active and taking a little break, and then I feel like that's just how things are going for us.
Yeah, I think in some of my past bands I was so concerned about like, oh, I gotta post like once a week so people don't forget about us. But like you put out a new song and then like it's like you're the only band that people talk about for that week, right? So there's a natural way of being able to like have a release and have that like in the conversation, so to speak. But like at times it's totally cool just to drop something and then be like, yeah, we'll let you know when we have a show, and that's it. So
Yes.
so yeah, you guys like drop the initial announcement, and I think the coolest thing to me as a fan of your band is like you guys dropped it, you put out the record, and now it feels like Prowl is just like as busy as you guys have ever been. Like you're about to start a huge tour in Europe. You had like multiple release shows, like other opportunities are making their way. So like, was that very intentional to have it where it's like, okay, when we're coming back, we're gonna be back? Or were people just so excited to see you guys back that like so many things started to hit your plate?
I mean, I think like definitely the main goal was just like, honestly, we're gonna announce like 2 weeks prior to the release of the album, like, hey, we have a new album coming in 2 weeks, everything is ready. Like, yeah, we just wanted to give I mean, people waited for a long time too, since like because we were supposed to release that earlier. But so we were just like, let's drop the whole album and like we'll give 8 new songs to everyone. And we'll see like what happens after, like we worked on like the Euro tour like before announcing the album and everything, obviously,
right? Yeah,
like,
that wasn't like, oh, let's book a Europe tour in 2 months. I'm sure that's been in the works for a long time.
We were just like, look, we're gonna release the album, have release show, and then we're gonna fly over there, tour for like 2 weeks with Just Ice, and then we're gonna come back. And like obviously like a bunch of city like in Quebec were like, hey, you guys need to come. Like so like there's Quebec City, there's also city like a little bit more up north, like even Ontario. So yeah, like when we'll be back in September, we're definitely gonna play a bunch of show around Montreal.
Right.
Yeah, but I think like just the pieces went perfectly together, like the tour, the release, and like everyone seemed to still care about PROWL, so that's good.
Oh, yeah, of course. So yeah, those initial release shows when the album dropped, you played in like Montreal, Rimouski, and a couple other places. Like which of those was your favorite, and were there any specific moments from that show that you felt like just like really psyched as far as like whether it was like, you know, a response from the crowd or like certain people saying to you things like after your set, like anything that comes to mind there?
Yeah, honestly, definitely the show in Montreal. Like both shows were amazing, but like, you know, Montreal is like my hometown. And like there was just so many faces, so many friends, like family, so many people that we haven't seen in so long. And I was just like, this is an amazing night. And like, yeah, definitely the reaction from the crowd, like when we played, I don't know, I just turned around and I was like, yo, like everyone's moving. You know what I mean? Like the room is packed and like everyone is like, you know, feeling it, I feel like, or like vibing or like dancing or whatever. So yeah, definitely like we couldn't ask for like a better, like that was literally our first show in like 2.5 years or something. So like we were not maybe not stressed, but like we were like, yo, like we haven't done this in a long time. Like obviously like we practiced a bunch and stuff, but like we were like, yo, like it's back, like playing shows is back. So yeah, we just had an amazing time.
Yeah. I remember vividly, I think it was after we dropped the Prowl Wild Rose 2018 set. It was either after your set or after you dropped the video of it where you were just talking like you're a very like energetic front person, so you're like just bouncing all over the place. You're grabbing the fucking mic stand and like throwing it around. And something you said to me was so funny that you're like, I don't really think about what I'm gonna do while I'm, you know, on stage. I'm just doing it. So like, was that just an early mantra of yours, or were there like specific vocalists and different people that just had that energy level originally that you wanted to replicate?
No, honestly, I feel like when I'm on stage, we're just like, I don't know, like it's also like as a band, we're just doing what we have to do. And I don't know, I just don't think about it. It's how I feel it. And yeah, just being on stage with like my friends and like playing music together and sharing this moment of like giving like some energy to the crowd and like receiving energy back. And like, I don't know, I feel like I just don't think of anything and it just goes so fast from the first note to the last one. But I'm just in the zone, you know?
Yeah, like there's been every time I play, it's like I kind of have a moment where I realize, oh, there's like 2 songs left and I feel like we just started, you know? Like it's just it flies by. So
it does.
Also at the time of dropping this episode, it's very intentional for me to drop this episode right after the announcement that you guys will have been added to Hold Your Ground Fest, which is happening just second week of September. And the minute that I caught wind of that, I was just over the moon because again, like huge PROWL fan, and the fact that I would get to see you guys so soon and play with you, let alone film, is very exciting. So I don't know if there's anything that you want to share there as far as how that came to be.
I mean, yeah, like we started talking with Kyle and like we obviously knew that like this fest was happening like in Ontario and like like in the East, there's not a lot of big hardcore fests and stuff like that too. And we were just like, the lineup is tight, like all the bands are sick. And then we started talking about us like maybe being added to it. And then it just ended up working out. So we were like very happy because like right before COVID, we were supposed to go in Ontario as well. And like all the shows got canceled. So we were like, cool, we'll finally be back and we'll play with a bunch of friends that we haven't seen in so long. And like, I don't know, like that's gonna be sick, you know? Like we're so pumped for that.
Yeah, I'm almost a little nervous now to like have Mark watch me riff because I look at him as such like a riff god. So no, I'm very excited just to see y'all rock and just be able to do that. There's probably gonna be some moments where I have to hand off my camera just so I can fucking like, you know, just mob out for some of the new shit. But yeah, it's very cool to see y'all get added to arguably what I think, one of the coolest Canadian festivals to happen this year.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, like I guess like even before, like you said that there was the original thought, like the last thing that got canceled when the COVID happened was like your run through Ontario. Like you guys have played Ontario a few times even before that, though, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we played Toronto a couple times. We played London. We played, yeah, that's pretty much. We played Ottawa a couple times as well.
Right.
Yeah, always had a good time in Ontario.
Yeah, yeah, and like the driving between Montreal to Toronto, like it's a jaunt, but it's not like too bad when it comes to.
It's like 6 hours, so like
Yeah, okay.
it's pretty chill.
Yeah.
We've done worse.
It's so funny. As Canadians, we're like, yeah, 6 hours, totally fine. And then all the American listeners are like, wait, more than an hour to drive somewhere? I'm not going there.
No, for real. Like, that's why I'm happy to be here. Like, all the places we're playing are like a couple hours away from each other. Like, there's some that are like more than 4, but like most of them are between like 2 and 4 hours. And I'm like,
right.
Blessed.
I feel like that's a great segue. So like you said, you guys, this episode will be dropping when you're in the midst of your Euro tour. So like how, like, well, it hasn't even started yet, but like what it's interesting because when Mark came on, Just Ice was like a band that was often going to Europe. And so like what are you most excited about being back there playing PROWL music?
I feel like it's gonna be a complete new experience because like we went in the United States, we toured Canada as well. So I feel like just being in different countries, like with Just Ice and PROWL, like it's gonna be amazing. I'm very looking forward to it and just playing in places we never went. And I don't know, I know we'll make a bunch of friends and speak to a bunch of new people and like meet a bunch of people as well. So eat good things. So, you know, living the dream.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to eat on tour?
Oh my God. We haven't toured in so long. Honestly, I feel like when we were touring, like I was just coffee. I mean, when we tour, I don't always drink coffee, but like I eat a bunch of fruits. I feel that's what keeps me alive on tour. Fruits, water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I try to always eat. Like
try
obviously
to be a
there's
healthy boy
meal, but yeah, I try to. Like obviously sometimes you gotta cheat and eat other things, you know. But yeah, I try to eat as good as I can on tour. But I feel like this Euro tour is gonna be bread, cheese, and wine. I'm not gonna lie.
And maybe some fruit in between there. Maybe some grapes.
Yeah, definitely some fruits.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, when Endgame, we just did a really short run. We went out to Victoria and back, and I definitely did not, you know, being the first tour, it's like, oh, I definitely learned what not to do as far as taking care of myself. So I came back pretty destroyed as far as like lack of sleep, not eating the right things. But yeah, I need to just intro more fruit into when I'm playing shows on the road for sure.
Yeah, in the morning, like apple, banana, orange, like yeah, that's my go-to.
Yeah, most things that you don't need to like refrigerate or anything, they can just be chilling.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, like, is there anything else that you want to say on the Europe tour? Because you know, I'll probably be dropping this like very early in it. So like, if there's any specific shows that you're like most excited about, or like certain places or bands that you're excited to play with.
Honestly, like I never toured Europe. It's literally my first time in Europe. So like, I'm just excited to play. Like, I mean, we're playing in like Paris. We're playing in like. We're playing a bunch of cities in the Netherlands, and we're going to Belgium as well. So, you know, honestly, all the shows, I'm excited to see what it's going to be. You know? But I know we're playing like this fest called 666 Fest. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be a sick one. So I'm definitely excited for that.
Yeah. You know, something that came up on Mark's podcast, and I re-listened to it today just to prep for this, but you know, him talking about like you know, French being his primary. I think when we started the podcast, he was like, I haven't spoken to someone, because this is like kind of tail end of COVID. He's like, I haven't spoken to someone in English in almost 2 years at this point. So, like, is that something that just, you know, even just like going through the airport and some of those things, just having the extra like language on your side, has that like proven like really easy with like, you know, getting around or even just talking with like local people?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like obviously there's a bunch of people who speak French in France,
Right.
but yeah, like it's definitely like sometimes they have a hard time understanding my Quebec accent though. So I gotta take like more of a French accent, which is very funny. Or like, you know how we all like French people from Quebec, we use a lot of words in English.
Yes.
So sometimes I'm just gonna say a word in English and they're like, "Oh, you're from Quebec." You know?
It's
I
like
know I speak French, but there's a little English in it, and they're like, "You're from Quebec," right away. But,
so you almost like lose
no, honestly,
points
like yes, exactly. But no, it's funny. Like yeah, I'm happy I can like speak French and English. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's yeah, I never even thought even just the Quebec accent would even be something that someone over there would snuff out really easily.
Oh yes, they do.
Do you get upset when people say poutine versus Poutine?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No worries.
I was on a podcast where someone was asking about my favorite Canadian food, and I said, in Calgary, there's like breakfast poutine or poutine.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if people who are French, and I knew that we had this coming out, so I'm like, maybe I should ask Max how he feels about that.
No worries. You're good.
Is that a stereotype that like, oh, if you're from Montreal or like anywhere over there that you have to like, you know, poutine or even like, you know, do that? Or is that like,
I never really heard that, I'll be honest.
I don't know.
So
it's like, that's where that's, you know, it's almost like if you're going to, like if you're going to Philadelphia, you're going to get a Philly cheesesteak or whatever. Like, but I'm sure some people there, it's like, yeah, it's good, but like there's other good shit here as well. So I don't know if that's just a similar thing.
No, I feel like poutine is definitely a good Montreal thing. But like, yeah, like honestly, all the bands that come through, they're always like, where can I find like good poutine? You know?
Right.
And I'm like, yes, you're in the right place, my friend.
You're in the right place.
Yeah, honestly, like I know there's poutine in Toronto and stuff, but like you gotta get a Montreal one.
Yeah. What do you think is like the silver bullet as far as like what makes like really good Montreal poutine? Like, is it a certain ingredient or just like a way that one of the things is done? Like, give someone who's never had poutine like the right guide when they're
Oh my god. The thing is that I don't have like one poutine style that I like. Like obviously like classic poutine, but like I like sometimes like the fries are more crispy or no, but like I'd say like the fries has to be very greasy, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So fries are greasy. The cheese gotta be like room temperature, not like too cold. So it really melts
or
when
not
you put
like
the sauce on.
Not like just melting the minute that you open it up. Like it's got to be
Exactly.
somewhere in between. Okay.
Yes, and you gotta find a place where they also put fries, cheese, fries, and cheese. Not because like otherwise, you eat all the cheese at the top, and then there's nothing at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
So you gotta
layer it like a lasagna almost.
Yes. Yeah, you gotta find a spot where they do it like that, which is the hardest part, but I can guide you.
I know when I had Jay from Mindforce on, I know he's a big pizza guy, and he told me about some bad pizza experiences. So because we're on this topic of poutine, what's the worst poutine experience you've ever had?
Oh my god. So I remember like when I was way younger, like after shows we were always going to eat poutine, and we were going in that place where you can really customize your poutine.
Oh, okay.
Which was definitely not always good ideas. So I remember, I don't know how we ended up ordering this, but we had a poutine. The fries were like kind of mashed potatoes, and it was like there was like pogo pieces in it. You know pogo, like
oh, like
the sausage with like the
like corn dogs.
Yes, exactly, corn
Okay,
dogs.
yeah,
My
yeah.
bad. Corn dogs in it, like obviously, so it's mashed potatoes, cheese, gravy, hot dog pieces, corn dog pieces, and there was 2 eggs on top, like sunny side up eggs on top of the poutine. Yeah, that was. I saw that. I was like, damn, that's like something. I tried it, and yeah, I don't have good memories of it. So like.
It's funny that
Yeah.
it's like a build your own poutine, because like any place that has that like Subway style thing where it's like, oh, you could do whatever you want, like it's such a weird thing, because then it's like totally on you if your food sucks, versus like, yo, you're the experts, write a fucking recipe and like let me order that cool sounding thing, versus like, I don't know. Like, as someone, like, one of my early jobs growing up was I worked at a Subway, and I'm like, you're the weirdest combo of meats and just weird sauces. I'm like, there's no way that this tastes good. But like, don't get mad at me and ask for your money back when it tastes like ass.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying now people gotta get classic poutine, and I'm definitely on that team.
Yes.
But we've been young and we tried a bunch of stuff. So
yeah. Yeah, very cool. So let's talk about the new album. So Forgotten Realms. 8 songs. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So, and only one of those was ever played live to a degree. I was talking with Jordan, who's the producer of the show, and he was like, this was his words. He was like, when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, Man of Fire, that's out, right? But like, you guys have only played that song live, but everything is brand spanking new as far as like releasing wise. Is that right?
We played the first one and the second one in LDB at LDB. Actually.
Oh, okay. You played the second song. Okay.
I feel like that's why the first one, like it really caught people's ears, because I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of an intro too, and it's really sounds like a battle. I don't know, but yeah, we played the first one and the second one on the album live like a handful of times.
Okay.
Men of Fire has been played a little bit more, but we never released it like on any album or whatever. So
yeah. So but yeah, other than that, it's like all just brand new Prowl music that just sounds like battle music, as you said. When it came to writing the lyrics and all that, like, is there kind of like a constant theme song to song, or are they all kind of individual? Like, talk to me about some of the lyrical directions that you took with it.
Yes. So I'd say like how the LP was written, it's like there's a couple of songs that like are like kind of a history altogether, and there's some other songs that are like specific story. Like Men of Fire is not related to any other songs. It's like, I don't know how to say that, but like it's a silo, has his own, exactly, has like his own story, or like I'm pretty much like and like the Merchant of Bones, it's a little bit the same. Like it's not really related to any of the other songs. But yeah, so like honestly, it's cool that I had like a lot of time on my hands to write it, and like I'm really into these like medieval themes and like all this stuff and like battles and like so I just wrote the whole thing, and like I had good time writing the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was there any specific song that was like really difficult for you to write? And a specific reason why? Whether it was like the meaning or just like the flow musically, like just you were having writer's block to a degree?
I'd say Rune Fortification was took me a long time to write. I don't know there's no really specific reason. It gave me a hard time. But sometimes it's good, like you got to work on your things and make sure that like you're satisfied at the end of what you wrote and stuff. So yeah, it took me a while to write, but like I'm happy with it now.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time, even with past music, where you've written something and it just hasn't felt right, and then you've like completely scrapped it and started over?
Yeah, it happened. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But there's always words that I like, and normally that I'm gonna use them anyway. But yeah, I mean, it happens that sometimes I write something and I'm like, okay, no, like doesn't make sense or whatever, and I just start again.
Yeah. What are Max's top 3 lyrical words that you've used time and time again? What are like the 3 words that you always seem to be a go-to for you?
Oh my God, that's a hard one. On the spot like that, I'd say, oh my God. I mean, obviously the word battle comes back a couple times in the album.
Okay.
I like swerves.
You like swears?
No, swords. Like
swords. Okay.
Swords, sorry. Yeah, my bad.
No, that's fine. I'm sure a lot of people listening like swears in their music.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying it. Yeah, and I mean, I like fire. I like minds. Like, yeah, minds and minds.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 different words, but I like these 2. And yeah. Bones. I don't know.
Bones. Yeah, definitely a lot of medieval things when it comes to things you find on the battlefield.
Yes, definitely.
Since we're on the topic of medieval things, what's your where do you take inspiration from? Are you like watching medieval movies? Are you watching like reading comics? Like, is there any specific thing within that world of influence for you that you like that you think is really prevalent on PROWL as a band?
I mean, obviously, like I get my ideas from things I see, but like to be honest, it's more just coming from my head. Like I just put myself in this mood, and I always feel like it's like the medieval times is very interesting to me, and like just from like looking at pictures and stuff, and like like kind of medieval weapons and stuff, and like I just get a bunch of ideas, and can like after I just gotta like make sure they work together in my head. But like that's pretty much how I put myself in like this mood of writing medieval lyrics.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're not watching like a specific movie and you're like, oh, now I'm like super inspired. You're just like the whole just era and all of that just like is, something that like is always on your mind, it sounds like.
Yes, exactly. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, Max, well, we're heading towards the end of the podcast here. Obviously, like we've hit on a lot of stuff with the new record, and I'm just again overjoyed that PROWL is back and just rocking as hard as ever.
Thanks.
The last question that I ask anybody on the podcast is a favorite mosh related story that you would like to share, and that's like anything that's first to your head. It could be like, this happened to me, or I did this, or this is a really gruesome story, or this is a very wholesome story. However you want to start to wrap up the show here.
Yes, I definitely have a bunch of mush stories, but there's one that just popped in my head, and like I think not enough people know about that one.
Okay.
So me and my very, very good friend went to this show in Ottawa, and I was just standing on the side, and he ended up mushing and like literally kicking my arm, and like my arm broke right away. Like we just looked at it and we could see like a big bump, and he was like, oh my god, I am so sorry. And like I knew he was not trying to like hit people and stuff like that. It was literally just an accident. And like it was so funny because like I had to drive back to Montreal, and I had like so he was helping me driving back, and like I don't know, like I feel like that's kind of a, and like I had a cast for like I don't know how long, and it's cool because like we're still best friends and we laugh about it today. But it was funny to see him holding the wheels while I was like shifting with my other arms coming back to Montreal.
Oh my gosh.
And stuff, and like yeah. So that was definitely a funny mush story.
Yeah. Like I've definitely been in those cases of like, hey, can you hold the wheel while I can take this jacket off because it's like too hot in here? But it's just like my arm is broken, so we have to drive this car together.
Yes, and he didn't have his license, so like.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
Yeah.
It's.
I know he's gonna listen to it and be like, I can't believe he said it like on a podcast, but gotta do it.
Yeah. There's no ill feelings here. It's just, shit happens. Sometimes your fragile bones can't withstand a good old spin kick, and that's how it goes.
Exactly.
Max, this has been a great chat. It's really great to see you and catch up and reminisce.
Thank you so much for.
Of course. All the PROWL links and your links will be in the description and in the show notes. But if there's anything you want to plug, anything you want to shout out, or anything you want to send the people off with before we go, the floor is yours, my friend.
I mean, definitely want to shout out a couple bands. Like I want to shout out Scorching Town from Montreal, FaZe, Puffer. Kiss the Sky, Meantime, Flashback. I'm excited to see everyone at Hold Your Ground and to see you as well. It's been a long time. But yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. And I had a very good time.
I had a very good time myself. Again, PROWL as a band means a lot to me. And it's very great to see y'all back. And I'm just very... I remember vividly after filming you guys for the second time when you came to Calgary, and you were like, I was trying to buy a shirt off of you, and you were just so insistent, like, take this shirt for free because you're doing all this shit for my band. And that in the very early stages of Scope, that meant a lot to me. And again, it's been so
dude,
it's just
always.
It's so cool to me how like it's all it takes is a couple crazy French Canadians to drive all the way and play a show, and now you have a bunch of friends. So I appreciate you, Max, and thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Thanks to you.